that make sense? You guys
Yes,
there?
I'm just a little bit lost because yours is numbering it as 9 and 9 is numbered something else for me.
It's 11 for us.
Yeah. So unfortunately, some of the prints of the HIkam, whoever printed it didn't know, oh, that's a HIkam. So they wouldn't number it correctly. They thought it was part of his sharh.
Mm.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So they didn't catch it.
the way that the different parts are bolded, kind of, I can understand why they missed that. So last time when you talked about this one, you mentioned to look into your state and how this it refers to the state you're in while doing the amal.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that at the end. So good, excellent. So the first part, tanawwa'at ajnas. Ajnas means like the different the different types and quality of the amal. We say al-jaza min jins al-amal. Amina, Sheikh Amina, how do you translate jins? Like al-jaza min jins al-amal.
Like a genre, or it's I feel like it's a bigger word than type.
Yeah, it has to do with like quality also, right? Quality of the act. So I'm trying to pull up a translation of the HIkam. None of the translations I've come across have been very good because it's not an easy book to translate, of course. It's not something simple. But I'm gonna share this with you guys in the chat as well. English translation. Anyone else have thoughts, Maryam or Ara or Magdalena, on the translation of the word jins? Jins means genus, right? La nafiyatul jins in grammar. But here jins is meaning ajnas. It's much deeper than that, right?
I'm checking al-ma'ani.
Yeah, man, this translation doesn't really cut it, man. I don't even think they translated ajnas. See that? To know what ajnasul a'mal, actions differ because the inspiration of the states of being differ. Okay.
I always I always thought of it as like you reap what you sow kind of thing. Like that kind of summed it up for me. But the word itself, yeah, I'm not sure.
Like kama tadinu tadan.
Yeah. A little bit.
Oh wow, there's the audio. Here's another translation. This is the same translation. So I don't know what's going on, man. But God bless him. You know, it's never easy we should never be overly critical of the work people do, man. It's never easy. Here's the actual HIkam itself that I think also will be helpful as far as keeping the numbers together. Hold on, let me.
Al-ma'ani says category, class, kind, sort, species, type, or variety.
Yeah, so the different variety of acts, maybe a good way to say it. But it has to deal with a certain state of where a person is, right?
There's also the meaning of the nature of the state. Does that fit?
That's nice too. Maybe the natural variety. I don't know. You can take it. Arabic is very profound. It's very beautiful. Let's see if Sheikh Sharnobi, he explains it. But to know what ajnasul a'mari, you know, the different types of, I like to say the quality of acts. I think sometimes kind of sort of captures it. You guys feel free to differ. I just feel like that gives that essence of its meaning, right? لِتَنَوُّعِ وَارِدَةِ الْأَحْوَالِ is based on the different things which inspire the actions of the soul, right? So a'mal is the actions of the limbs. We said it consists of three things, right? Intention, education, and practice. So Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, like, know the early Muslims tended to ask themselves, lima wa kaif, about anything they did, like why and how. Like, is it for God? And then how did I employ this act? Was it according to the Sunnah? Li tanawwu'i, and the lam here is called lam al-ta'lil because of the varied kind of inspirations that impact. And I like to look this as like environmental. What are the environmental factors that impact your heart? Sheikh Sharnubi, Sheikh Amina, you want to read?
أي اختلفت أجناس الأعمال الظاهرة لاختلاف الواردات التي هي الأحوال القائمة بالقلب.
Naam. So what he's talking about now here is the balance between the internal and external acts. أي اختلفت أجناس الأعمال الظاهرة لاختلاف الواردة التي هي أحوال القائمة بالقلب. We talked about this last time, right? That the current state of the world, the postmodern world, has inverted this. Right? اختلفت أجناس الأحوال الباطنة لاختلاف الواردة التي هي أحوال الظاهرة. So we talked about how it's brutalizing on the human species. Where Islam asks us to look into our souls and to value people for where they are internally.
It reminds me of a hadith: لا تكونوا إمعة إذا أحسن الناس أحسنتم وإذا أساءوا أسأتم.
Why does it remind you of that hadith?
Like whether you're the one influencing the culture around you and the state around you, or vice versa. And essentially the Prophet ﷺ says that you need to be better than just a stupid mold. If people do good, you do good, and if people do bad, you do bad. Which include, like, there has the potential of you doing good, but it misses the point of why you're doing good.
Can you say that hadith again? It's really profound.
I thought it was لا تكونوا إمعة إذا أحسن الناس أحسنتم وإذا أساءوا أسأتم.
Allah. La, I'm saying I want to hear it again because it's so nice.
Yeah.
Fatah Allahu lak. La takun, huh? I'm trying to memorize it right now.
Let me look it up so that we don't memorize it wrong.
All right. And then you can give me ijaza in the hadith. Nice. But that's amazing. Like, and there's this statement of Sayyidina Ali mentioned by, I think, Mubarrid in Al-Kamil, where he says, don't be like branches on a tree, right? Just don't just blow around where you are. So اختلفت أجناس الأعمال الظاهرة لاختلاف الواردة التي هي أحوال قائمة بالقلب. Okay, can you continue? I know you're looking for the hadith. So
فإن الواردات ما يرد على القلب من المعارف والأسرار والأعمال الظاهرة.
So the key to the things that impact our heart is, like, one of the scholars said that you should put a security system on your heart, on your heart, and put it in your eyes, your ears, what you eat and what you think. Right? So the importance of having husnul dhan billah, right? In particular, having husnul dhan billah, which now people are struggling with. Having husnul dhan bin nas. The story of Ibn Arabi when he went to Mecca. I think I told you guys. Did I tell you the story, Ibn Arabi in Futuhat al-Makkiyah, when he said, I went to Mecca and I met the most ignorant human being I've ever seen in my life? Yeah, so he went to Mecca and he says, I met the most ignorant human being I've ever met in my life. And they asked him, like, who? And he said, well, I met this guy who was making a tawaf and he had this massive amount of followers, right? So I said to the guy, like, man, who are you? And then the guy, he was like, I'm actually nobody. I'm an idiot, but I just say one thing and people follow me. And I got this following because I'm not even learned. Like, I'm not a sheikh or anything. I just look like it. I play the part. So Sayyidina Ibn Arabi, he said, like, what do you call people to? And he said, I told them, La khayra ala wajhi al-ard wa la khayra fi nas. That's my message. It's like totally dystopian, right? Like, there is no good anywhere. So Ibn Arabi said, this is the worst human being I've ever met in my life.
What's Rush Limbaugh?
And Imam al-Ghazali, he has a small essay where in Sheikh Abu Fattah Abu Ghudda, he translated Ayarhamu. Imam al-Ghazali, he said that there are some people who will cause people to lose so much hope that the only thing they left halal to eat is grass in the mountaintops. Like, and that makes Islam impossible to practice, right? So what we allow to impact our hearts, whether in the name of conservatism or liberalism, right? In the sense of whether it's being laxed religiously or overly strict religiously, and also in our professional lives and personal lives, can be an impact on how we act, obviously, right? So how would you guys recommend that someone stays balanced? Like, how do you make sure that the waridat al-ahwal aren't taking you to one extreme or the other? And I see that the material world, especially as driven by corporations sell an extreme idea. Because that's how you keep people off balance. You know, a lot of us deal with college students, and the construction of beauty is one of the most brutal things I've ever seen impact young women. It's relentlessly brutal. And men are being hit with a whole nother set of, it's almost impossible to catch and quantify what men are also facing. But just engaging and having two daughters, man, older daughter now 18, and then dealing with college students, you know, these constructions that impact the heart are then found in actions. Young men who watch pornography, right? Who take relationship advice from like certain type of art that they may be exposed to, impacts their marriages. Allah, this is what you do. Tell us something good.
And subhanAllah, I'm listening to you and appreciating what you're saying and thinking, you know, as much as we I think we should engage in conversations more. And when we say, let's talk about our blessings more, talk about the good more, that's huge. We should, but we should also encourage people to talk about the bad things, to talk about what they're seeing that they don't like, or what they're feeling that they don't like. And if it is, for example, beauty distortion, to talk about that so that we could redirect that, so that we could kind of guide the right or better, more the healthier way of, you know, feeling and thinking about these things. So just kind of not only talk about the good things, but also to be open about those harmful things.
You know what, that's amazing. Magdalene, do you have anything you want to share? You know, this actually reminds me of the hadith of the three guys in the cave. You know what I'm talking about? The three guys who, in Riyadh Salihin, is an authentic hadith. I think of Abdullah ibn Umar al-Khattab, those three men who were in the cave, and then the rock fell and blocked the cave. And then they all made tawassul with some good they did. So one was like, he took care of his parents and he made sure they had their milk. The other, he controlled his sexual desires for his cousin. And the third was like, he had hired somebody, he had employed somebody who left and came back. And then like, when he left, he didn't pay him. So he took what he owed him and invested it, and it grew. And then when the guy came back, he gave him everything he earned through his investment. And the rock moved each time. But like it brings together this hikam. Like, number one is like your suhbah, like who's around you. And then number two is the quality of the deed. It was sincere for Allah. So the rock moved. So there was this kind of intersection of the waridat, which impacted their hearts, made them sincere, coupled with that being brought about by being, or furnished by being around good people. So I like to tell people, man, surround yourself with good friends. What do you guys think are the qualities of good friends? you know, people ask this a lot. I was asked this the other day, like, what are the qualities of good friends?
Someone who can point you out when you're doing wrong, help you build character.
Mm. Nice.
I want to also say that they love you, because even as they're fixing your character, they're doing it with love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can tell the difference between someone telling you you're a screw up or someone telling you like, hey, you really need to work on this. You can do this.
Yeah, I always see that the loving dissent is the dissent that like is invested in like helping me increase my capacity to be better, instead of just like, you suck, right? It's like, you may suck, but you can grow.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not just like, you're horrible. Okay, I'm horrible. Okay, so I'm gonna stay horrible. But then it's like the guy who, when he comes into the mosque and he's praying, and the Prophet ﷺ, was it that like someone sneezed and he said Yarhamakallah or something, like, no, he came into the masjid and people were in ruku' in Bukhari, and so he made ruku' at the door of the masjid and he walked like a batta, a duck, you know, to the row. And then afterwards somebody told the Prophet about it, and the Prophet said, hey, come here. And he came to the Prophet, and the Prophet ﷺ said, Jazakallahu khairan ala hirsik, right? Like, may Allah reward you for your enthusiasm, but don't do it again. Right? So like there's this correction, but then there's this like improvement that's there. So I think friends do help center us, right? Like tanawat ajnas al-a'mali, to know what, like, how do I balance waridat al-ahwal, is certainly by being around love. You know, there's this statement that the Prophet said, my provisions came from the love of Khadija. My rizq was from her love. It's like a heavy statement, right? And then like if you love somebody, the Prophet says you have to tell them. Inna lillahi, Allah has like these special friends. Ibn Majah, you know, narrates. They asked him, Man hum ma a'malahum, who are those people? And he's like, people who قوم يتحبون بروح الله, people who love by the Spirit of Allah. I think that's one. I think another thing is like making sure people have realistic expectations.
Yes.
That's hard to deal with sometimes. Like people's expectations of the material aren't necessarily in line with their capabilities. And I think having regular exposure to like some kind of religious information is important, right? Being fed religiously every week, I think, is crucial.
I think consistently worshiping together, be it a halaqa, be it salah, be it whatever, that level of consistency is what creates familiarity of like, you are the person that prays and I look forward to seeing you pray. And just, it becomes like, I don't want to say safety, but a familiarity that makes it feel like home. And they become your family through the worship.
Look where Sheikh Sharnubi takes this discussion. Allah yarhamu. Whoever wants to read, فإن الواردة ما يرد على القلب من المعارف والأسرار والأعمال الظاهرة تابعة لأحوال القلب لما في الحديث. يلا شيخة. ألا
وإن في الجسد مضغة إذا صلحت صلح الجسد كله إذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله ألا وهي القلب. فإذا ورد على القلب العلم.
One second. Everybody understand the hadith?
Yes.
Is Maryam still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Sorry. Do you want to share anything so far that we talked about? You want to chime in?
No, I'm good. I tend to listen more than I.
Yeah, I remember you told me.
Yeah.
Is Majdaleen still here? I think we lost her.
I'm here, but I have to sign out actually now because I have to go back to work.
Okay, I'm recording it, so if it's okay with you guys, I'll just post it on YouTube and you can check it later.
Yes, please. And
Is that okay with everybody else? Nice.
Yes.
So this hadith, ala wa inna fil jasadi mudgha, in the body there's a piece of flesh. Ida salahat, and there's also a riwayah, ida sulihat, صلح الجسد كله وإذا فسد الجسد كله ألا وهي القلب. So this is the hadith that says, you know, in the body there's a piece of flesh. If it's good, if it's healthy, the whole body's healthy. If it's corrupted, the whole body's corrupted. It's the heart. Okay, go for it, Sheikha.
But also, if you do post it, I found the other hadith that I mentioned. I shared it in the group.
Nice. So you can read it for us maybe at the end.
Sure.
I think you read it right though, as far as I know, you read it correct.
I didn't read it right.
Oh man. All right, here you go.
فإذا ورد على القلب العلم بفضائل قيام الليل توجه إليه وآثره على غيره فتقوم به الجوارح وكذلك الصدقة والصيام وباقي الأعمال.
Yeah, so look how he frames the role of targhib and tarhib. How do you know, Imam Ibn Juzay, he says in his muqaddimah of tafsir that the entire purpose of the Quran is ibadah. Like that's the primary job of the Quran, is to define what is worship. And as an extension is then how do you motivate people to worship, and how do you warn them of neglecting worship? So he says that edifice is on targhib and tarhib. Encouragement and discouragement. So the Sheikh, I like what he says because I think about this from like maybe a ministerial point of view, a chaplaincy point of view, an imam point of view, a teacher point of view. فإذا ورد على القلب العلم بفضائل قيام الليل. So if, you know, the heart is impacted by the virtues of qiyam al-layl, توجه إليه, then the heart will want to do that. وآثره على غيره, and it will choose qiyam al-layl over Netflix binging, for example. فتقوم به الجوارح, and then the limbs will follow. وكذلك الصدقة والصيام وباقي الأعمال. And now we can understand why people like Imam Sayyidina Imam al-Nawawi, he wrote Riyadh Salihin. Ibn Mundhir, Targhib wa Tarhib. Now we see kind of how these books are written to inspire the heart and to discourage the heart. Subhanallah. Kind of interesting, man. Where are we? So this takes us to the next one. So after talking about kind of the factors that impact the heart and the limbs, he gets to the essence of the heart. And he says, go ahead, Sheikh, you can read it if you want.
الأعمال صور قائمة وأرواحها وجود سر الإخلاص فيها.
Allah.
سبحان الله. يعني أن أعمال البر كسور قائم كسور قائمة
كسواري.
كسوار قائمة, that makes sense. أي أشباح وأرواحها التي بها حياتها. Sorry, I can't see because it cuts off.
It's okay.
التي بها حياتها وجود سر الإخلاص.
نعم. So الأعمال صور قائمة, the actions are like empty vessels. وأرواحها, and the life that's found in these vessels, wujud is the existence, sirri, of the secret of al-ikhlasi fiha. يعني أن أعمال البر كسور قائمة. So that righteous actions are very similar to, like, he says, like ashbah, like a ghost, right? What he means is like an empty vessel, something that has no substance. I like to think of it like as a mannequin. I wouldn't use the word ashbah. I would use maybe like mannequins. وأرواحها, and the life of these acts, التي هي حياتها. His Arabic is really beautiful, by the way. And the life in these vessels, وجود سر الإخلاص, is so ikhlas is the oxygen to the act. Ikhlas is the heart that pumps the blood into the act. It gives it life. It's like really nice, man. أي سر هو الإخلاص فيها. فمن عمل عملا بلا إخلاص كان. تفضل.
Sorry, it's so powerful. بلا إخلاص كان كمن أهدى جارية ميتة للأمير يبتغي بها الثواب وهو لا يستحق على ذلك إلا أنواع العقاب.
How you want to translate that?
he's saying like it's someone that dedicated a servant to the king, hoping to get reward, except that the servant was dead. And if you're giving, subhanAllah, that he's saying instead of receiving reward, you should actually be punished for it because you're giving something that's dead.
فإذا وجود إخلاص كالحياة وعدم الإخلاص كإيه كالموت. عظيم عظيم سبحان الله. والمراد مطلق الإخلاص الشامل لأنواعه فإنه يختلف باختلاف الأشخاص. Here the Sheikh, he does something that I really appreciate, because oftentimes when we read, before I go, you seem like you want to say something about what you just said that's much more profound.
It's filtering in my head. This is my thinking face.
كان كمن أهدى جارية ميتا للأمير يبتغي بها الثواب، يعني أعطيته إياه لكي يكتسب ثوابا أو مالا أو جزاء، يعني وهو لا يستحق على ذلك إلا أنواع العقاب. يا Allah. And you know what's powerful about this example? The guy actually put in work. You know, like he tried. He didn't care about the quality. I'm not in favor of this example, but you know, this is an old book, so.
Yeah, I don't know if I can relate to the example, but like you see this with goodwill, where people will give away things that are still usable because they want someone else to benefit from it, versus someone that's taking out their trash and just found a convenient place to drop it off, and it just adds more work to the person that has to sort it, and it's just frustrating.
At the Boston Mosque, we had to put a sign out, please don't leave your clothes at the clothes collection, because people would leave the wrong clothes. They were like, oh, this is where I can dump all my clothes. You're like, no, we can't use those clothes, man. They have to be folded. They have to be washed, right? And people would literally just like leave their jeans in front of the thing, like a pile of clothes. And it became, yeah. So the idea here is you know, the quality that the ajnasul amal, right, is impacted by where the heart is.
Okay, can I ask, or I guess there's this idea of right now, a lot of us Muslims have learned the fara'id, right? We're doing our prayers, we're doing our siyam. I want to balance what I feel about, you know, us learning the fara'id, so I mean us like teaching them and imposing them so quickly without first teaching the ikhlas. And whenever I'm like, the way I'm thinking right now is when I'm in that classroom teaching these young kids, my goal is to teach them how to connect to Allah first and foremost, so that I can prepare them for when they are, you know, obligated to do these, you know, fara'id, this prayer and whatnot. But you know, we're in a state where we have a lot of people who have, like, obviously we don't not do our prayer, because then there's, you know, I got for that. But where's the balance? Because then you have, you know, you want to be able to encourage that connection and prioritize that while teaching it. So like someone who doesn't wear hijab, for example, we know this is a farad, we know this is a command by Allah, but you want to teach ikhlas, you want to teach that connection with Allah, there's purpose, you know, but then do you say, okay, don't do it until you feel that, or do it? And maybe, you know, hijab is a sensitive topic, but, you know, salah, you don't do it until you build that connection, or like the previous HIkam, or what we were talking about just prior to this, you know, the heart isn't in it, but the legs and the limbs are, because it's a fard, then you have to do it.
That's
And
profound.
Then
but then what would you suggest as then being, like, how do we teach that is my question.
I mean, I'm always for preventative and just really making sure that you teach young people how to connect to Allah and prioritize that. During the Prophet's time, it was okay for him. I mean, they were teaching Tawheed, they were teaching connection with Allah before, he was teaching connection to Allah before the HIkam even came out. But, and I feel like it has to some degree come in that order. You teach love for Allah, connection to Allah before teaching these rules. But right now it's kind of, it has to be simultaneously. Right now the fara'id are set.
I mean, I wonder if we ask, you know, some of these people that are being exposed to that kind of education, like, do you find love in worship?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel loved in worship? You know, I asked one time, I don't cry very much, but one time at NYU, unfortunately, I should be better about crying more. But I ask the people that come to the Tuesday Halaqa, this is over a year ago, hey, how many of you feel like Allah loves you? And no one raised their hand, man.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 100-some people in there. Nobody raised their hand. So, I mean, imagine trying to navigate a world which is already presenting so many existential challenges and then not feeling loved, man. Like, why would the Prophet ﷺ say that if you love someone, you have to tell them? It's like you must tell them. Because love is like a restorative thing. It's very restorative. And yeah, I think that you know, hopefully FYI, you guys can think about how do we like turn these things into like a pedagogy? You know, how do you teach these things? It's very important. Go ahead, sorry.
No, thank you so much for saying that. Yeah.
وهو لا يستحق على ذلك إلا أنواع العقاب والمراد مطلق الإخلاص الشامل لأنواعه. And here is what I appreciate Sheikh Sharnobi. He says فإنه يختلف باختلاف الأشخاص. That ikhlas can be different for different people. فإخلاص العباد سلامة أعمالهم من الرياء جلي والخفي وكل ما فيه حظ للنفس. So it says like the ikhlas of people who are worshippers, ubad, right? And here what he means by the ubad is like everybody who worships Allah. Like the common worshipper, right? Who establishes the fara'id. He said for them, ikhlas is to be free of showing off, whether it's a explicit or implicit form of ostentation, and to be free of anything for which the soul finds some kind of agency. فلا يعملون العمل إلا لله تعالى طلبا للثواب وهربا من العقاب. So the reason that they do this is that they flee from, you know, the punishment of God, and they have hope in Allah's reward. وإخلاص المحبين هو العمل لله إجلالا وتعظيما. He says, but the ikhlas of the lovers, and isn't it interesting, back to what you're talking about, Ala, how when scholars would talk about often great worshippers, they would use either al-khashi'in al-muhibbin, those who have a sense of fear and reverence, or those who have acted on a great sense of love. هو العمل لله إجلالا وتعظيما, out of awe and respect. لأنه تعالى أهل لذلك. End of Surah Al-Mudaththir. هو أهل تقوى وأهل المغفرة. لا لقصد شيء مما ذكر كما قالت رابعة العدوية. Before we get into this, most scholars are of the opinion that the first group that he mentioned is actually also a great group, because in Surah Al-Anbiya, the prophets are quoted as worshiping Allah, hoping in Jannah, and fearing his punishment. So this designation, there is a little bit of discussion and critique academically about this issue. But if you and I were to talk about the people that we engage with and ourselves now, what categories, and this is going to be our discussion question for next time, how would we divide people according to ikhlas? Like for me, I knew a brother who his ikhlas was to stop shooting heroin. Like that's where he started.
Hmm.
Like he was like, this is how I'm gonna give back to God. It's like this brother asked if shooting heroin breaks his fast in Ramadan. Like that's where he was. So getting him to the point where he was able to be mukhlis in that one thing, like how do you expand the capacity of people's ikhlas? In our own capacity. So what would be the categories that we deal with today? So that's your assignment that we're going to talk about next time is when he says فإنه يختلف باختلاف الأشخاص. طيب ما هي الأشخاص أو ما هم الأشخاص الذين نراهم الآن أمامنا وما أنواعهم. Like that's important for us to think about now. So like where would you put the designations of ikhlas? The Sheikh, he just uses al-ubbad, then he uses al-muhibbin. God bless him. Allah yarhamu. He's a great scholar. What would be the designations of ikhlas that you and I would look for today if we're not, and this isn't to look down on people, right? This is meant to be at the service of people. And of course, rabi'atu al-adaw. So everybody understand kind of the assignment? Like what would be like the, you know, however many different tiers of sincerity would you find? Like, for example, the convert girl who's 17 years old in Louisiana who contacted me and said, like, I think I can only fast like an hour, dude, or I'll be like physically harmed. Like, is there ikhlas in that 1 hour?
Yeah.
Does she have to make up that fasting in the future? Of course, right? But like, how do you increase her capacity to feel tied to Allah? To tell her like, no, you have to do it. Then she gets thrown out of her house, and who's going to take care of her? Nobody. And then you have COVID. So for many converts, I can say this early on, being able to leave the house is the opportunity to practice. Now you can't even leave your house. So how do you increase the capacity of that person? Bi-idhnillah, because tawfiq min Allah. So we want to think about what are the different tiers of people that we may find. Like ikhlas is articulated according to فإنه يختلف باختلاف الأشخاص وباختلاف أحوالهم وباختلاف ظروفهم وباختلاف شؤونهم. That all has to be there. Because all that impacts a person's ability to be sincere. What is the setting? And then I think the second question that we want to think about is then what is the setting that allows someone to reach maximum capacity? How do you curate ikhlas? Of course, ikhlas is from Allah, right? But we have to try our best. So like, how do you curate sincerity? So those are two questions. Then he mentions Rabi'atul Adawiyya. Of course, Rabi'atul Adawiyya is this incredible woman, Sufi, who died. I actually visited her grave in Masr. And, you know, Rabi'a al-Adawiyya is someone who begins to start the early iterations of the theology of love. Like if you wanted to kind of categorize Rabi'atul Adawiyya versus, say, someone like Al-Ghazali, who negotiates a theology of sadness. He's Neoplatonic. And we know that the Platonic ethos is one that looks at human beings as like necessarily just a piece of garbage. And that, again, doesn't take anything away from we should be able to look at this objectively, right? Like people get really upset and angry, but we don't need to have cathartic reactions to like legitimate historical facts, right? It is what it is. He's very Neoplatonic. Platonic attitude towards people is one like basically people suck. So hence, if you think about how Ghazali creates in the beginning of the Ihya, which he took largely from Ibn Sina and Al-Muhasibi and Imam Al-Qushayri and Abu Tayyib Al-Makki, you know, sometimes plagiarizing like even pages verbatim. Again, I'm not a fan of Ghazali. I'm not the enemy of Ghazali, but I do have my concerns based on what my teachers taught me of some of his framing of the role of human beings is like very morbid. It's extremely morbid. But the opposite of Ghazali is Rabi'atul Adawiyya, who is the theologian of love. Like I like to tell non-Muslims, like our first theologian of love is a woman named Rabi'atul Adawiyya. After, of course, the great generations of Muslims, right? To the point that she reached a level of love where scholars are critical, which is okay. None of them said she's a bad person. But look at her poem. كلهم يعبدوك من خوف نار ويرون النجاة حظا جزيلا. So everybody worships you, fearing the fire and hoping in salvation as the great reward. أو بأن يسكنوا الجنان فيحظوا أو فيحظوا, and they hope to reside in the palaces of paradise. فيحظوا بقصور ويشربوا سلسبيلا, and they will reside in Jannah in these palaces and drink from Salsabil. ليس لي بالنجان بالجنان والنار حظ. Me, I don't care about heaven and hell. أنا لا أبتغي بحب بديلا. I don't want to seek any recompense for my love I have for you. Like my love for you is my Jannah. So like Rabi'a Adawiyya is kind of the opposite spectrum of Al-Ghazali. And she negotiates what we could say is like a theology of love, to the point that, and here's what a scholar said, hold up a minute, the Prophet said they worship Allah for Jannah and hell. I'm saying like, yo, that's deep, but like, hold up a minute. But still, like, it's a very beautiful thought that she has. And then in Ghazali's morbidness, there is some realism there that like, it's true. You know, there's good to take from them. But the Shaykh is saying like, this is the example of al-muhibbin. Al-muhibbin ya'budun Allah li'ajali mahabbatillah. Wa mahabbatihi takfihim. See that?
Mm-hmm.
Amina, can you read the poem?
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we teach young women about Rabi'atul Adawiyya, and young men, as our theologian of love. She is the theologian of love. And not no Joel Osteen type, you know, but like a very profound, practical love.
says كلهم يعبدوك من خوف نار ويرون النجاة حظا جزيلا أو بأن يسكنوا الجنان فيحظوا بقصور ويشربوا سلسبيلا ليس لي بالجنان والنار حظ أنا لا أبتغي بحبي بديلا.
الله أكبر. وأما الإخلاص المقربين فهو شهودهم انفراد الحق بتحريكهم وتسكينهم مع تبرئي من الحول والقوة فلا يعملون إلا بالله ولا يرون لأنفسهم عملا. And this is ihsan, right? And this is not wahdatul wujud. That's a whole nother ball game, right? So he says, as for the ikhlas of those who are close to Allah, meaning by their niyyah, that is their ability. And whenever scholars of tasawwuf use the word shuhud, it means the ayn al-qalb. What's called mushahadat. Maybe sometimes you read it, you're like, mushahadat. Because look, the shuhud of fiqh is to see the moon. Right? صوم لرؤيته وأفطر لرؤيته. The shahada, of tasawwuf, ولكن تعمى القلوب التي في صدور, is to see with the heart. إن تتقوا الله يجعل لكم فرقانا. But of course, the eye of the faqih takes supremacy over the eye of the heart. You know, because if we just let people go off their feelings, you know, it's going to be chaos. There has to be a dawabit. You know, like someone comes like, man, I don't know, man, I had this like really strong like spiritual thing where like I saw alcohol as like halal, and like I just think I'm just going to go to the bar, and like I just feel so close to God. Like, oh my God. Yeah. You know, and then you're like, well, the Sharia says alcohol is haram. Oh, I have the imladuni, right? Imladuni, like I have the knowledge of the others. And that's where Ghazali gets criticized. When he creates this kind of idea that there's like scholars of books, and then there's like, what, esoteric scholars. That's very platonic. And that's where, and he didn't mean it this way. People came after him and sort of expanded on it. And even Arabi also, like if you read the first introduction of his Futuhat al-Makkiyah, you'll think you're reading something that's published in the Awqaf of Saudi Arabia. It's like adheres to the Quran and Sunnah and the Ijma' and and don't deviate from the book and the Sunnah. Like it's actually very profound the way he writes, because even Arabi is Zahiri. He's not Maliki, Shafi, Hanafi, or Hanbali. He was Zahiri, which means no qiyas at all. So the idea that even Arabi is like lost in some kind of like groovy, hipster, Coachella, Burning Man, Islam, it's not true. Doesn't mean he's not above criticism. Ibn Taymiyyah has some legitimate concerns that he mentions, although Dhahabi unfortunately regurgitates some of the lies attributed to Ibn Arabi, and that's why Sayyidina Suyuti wrote a book called Tanbihul Ghabi, awakening the idiots about the reality of Ibn Arabi. And then he goes through all of these strange statements and shows there's no asanid for this. Lam yaqul bihadil asha. The point is, right, ikhlas is to be grounded in knowledge internally and externally. And the muqarrabin are those who they have mushahadat al-qalb, ay ihsan. That's what he means by here, shuhuduhum infirad al-haq. There's no power, no strength, good and bad. Everything that happens in the world is from Allah. Although we're commanded to try and to work and to make effort.
Can I
Sure.
have two
You
thoughts
didn't have to
really-
ask permission, just chime in. Anti sheikhatuna.
So I have two thoughts that are going through my head. One of them, because initially we were talking about what does it mean to have good company, and we said someone that loves you. And whether you're teaching someone salah or hijab or whatever it is, that like I feel like there's an underlying current that's missing in a lot of these ideas of like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking us to do this because he loves us, because it's a protection for us. And every time, like, because I used to work in youth camps and I would talk to young women a lot that are very like, and this is the age where dealing with body image is really, really critical. And we would repeat it, like there's the hadith about the Prophet ﷺ saying, Allahumma kama hasanta khalqi fahassan khuluqi, the way that you've perfected my outer, perfect my inner. Allah made you and he made you beautiful. Why would you listen to anyone telling you otherwise?
Allahu Akbar.
And it's just trying to get to that place. And like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to hear from you. This is why he's asking you to pray. And I've spoken to enough people where to them Islam is a checklist. And it's not supposed to be a checklist. And I feel like that's kind of the balance between the two, that it's not that there's, if I'm going to say I love Allah, fine, then do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you, because I'm trusting Allah that he knows better than I do. I might not want to wear hijab, but I'm trusting that I love Allah enough to trust him. I might not want to wake up for Fajr, but I know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough to trust him. I don't know if that's part of the balance. I think the other thing that's what's significant about the difference between Rabi'a versus Imam Ghazali, alayhim rahmatullah, both of them, Rabi'a was oppressed. And someone used her beauty against her and tried to...
Isn't there things that she was sexually assaulted? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like people were using her beauty against her. This thing that everybody desires, and someone's using it against her and oppressing her because of it. So it makes sense that she would try to come to this place of like, what does this all mean? Versus Imam Ghazali having a ton of authority and privilege. And yes, he left his position as this teacher, but that was still his background. And I just, whether you are connected to the power authority of the time and you have privilege, changes how you view the world. So it makes sense that he's talking about this is how we can organize, this is how we can do this is how we can do that, because he's trying to teach it to a political power of saying, hey, maybe you should do this better. Like he just, I feel like had a different role than Rabi'a. Wallahu alam. I just, the reason I talk about that, I had a teacher, I remember getting really angry at some of the tafsir about the Quran where they would say things that were very misogynistic and other ones that didn't. And I remember having a teacher sit me down. He said, if the book was published by the political authority of the time, keep that in mind. If the book was published by this person was serving the community that was trying to balance everything, and that's how their books got published, then they're going to have a different view. And it just, alhamdulillah, it gave me a lot of calm in terms of looking back at a lot of the scholars throughout Islamic history, because otherwise I'm like, why, how could you say this? Sorry, I felt more like a rant.
I don't think that was a rant. I think I think you should continue to build on what you're saying. It's powerful. It's very meaningful. Why do you think that she found love as the ultimate redemption compared to Ghazali, who found morbidness? Like he finds love through sadness. She finds love through sadness, but like it's inverted, right? His is like starting out great. He's at the top of his field, and then he realizes everything around him is kind of not as it appears, and so he finds himself through kind of a sad outlook. She experiences, I think she was even, some people say, like born an orphan, and she was at the bottom of the economic total pole. Then you live in a society where matriarchy is not in existence, right, for the most part. And she has to navigate all of these things, and then ultimately her sadness leaves her to love. Ghazali's comfort leads him to sadness.
And that makes sense. That's somewhat the balancing.
But also,
go ahead.
I think it kind of goes back to what was said in the paragraph just above this, that everybody has their differences, whether it's environment or personality. And I think each one of these scholars that we're referring to are filling a need in their heart with, for example, you're saying Ghazali finding it through sadness, and Rabi' al-Adawi finding it through love. They're filling this need in their own hearts. And then, لكل شخص إخلاصه, that idea of their doing it, it's their way of ikhlas. And I think that's beautiful because it opens channels and tiers, like you mentioned, for everyone to find their ikhlas their way.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice. We can talk about this more, I think, next time, inshallah ta'ala. It's a lot to take in. We haven't talked about who was the muqarrab, right? So we talked about the muhibbin and the muhzinin, right? Some people worship, for them, could be a form of sadness. Like, I think that Sayyidina Imam al-Ghazali, Allah yarhamu, I think he found a healthy dose of sadness as being needed to balance the Abbasi opulence he experienced. So maybe it was like, that's his worship, right? Allah says those who call upon Allah in hope and in fear, those who weep and those who are happy. Like, I mean, there's room for different articulations, right? And then Sayyidah Rabi'ah, she finds it through love. After going through like what can only be considered, I mean, there's a reason she went to Egypt, right? Many of the scholars of Iraq left Iraq, like Qari Abdul Wahab al-Baghdadi, one of the great Maliki giants. He's buried in Cairo, next to Sidi Khalil. Sidi Khalil is buried next to him. And people ask him when he came to Cairo, like, how was life in Iraq? And he said, Kuntu bil Iraq kal mushaf fi bayt zanadiq. Like, I was in Iraq like a Quran in the house of an apostate. That's how I was treated, because there was a lot of schisms happening amongst Muslims, right? A lot of ugliness that happened. It's not the Iraqi people, right? It's the political economic setting. So there could be some delusion that some people experience and then ultimately find redemption in different emotions. I don't think we should censor the sadness of Ghazali. We can be critical of maybe of the theological construction of it, which is okay. Ulama are doing that. I don't think we should be critical of the love of Rabi'ah, but there is some concerns that, like, this is like so much love, like it takes you to, like, you don't care about heaven and hell anymore. But that's not what she meant, right? She was the first to observe halal and haram. Same with Sayyidina Ghazali. If someone said to him, like he wrote an essay, like, don't cause people to lose hope. So there's obviously a balance between the two. Any other thoughts before we stop, and then we'll pick up next week, inshallah?
I don't know if this is just overthinking it, but I remember reading somewhere that essentially the conversations your parents have, or whatever conversations you have from 0 to 7, end up being your internal dialogue. And one of the things I remember reading about Rabia, as part of the reason she was called Rabia, I mean, literally child number 4, was because she was clearly lacking in receiving that love.
Mm.
You just have to dig to a deeper place to be able to fill it, because what you're replacing is a parent's love. And as a human being, like, that's just one of your most fundamental needs. And I think that, subhanAllah, like, her spiritual projection was just so incredible because she had so much trauma already. And she was filling all of that trauma with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and filling all of those holes. And alhamdulillah, for the majority of people, you don't have those holes. The majority of people have at least one decent parent that tells them they love them. Have it, like, a lot of people have 2 good parents that tell them they love them. I think she's just in a category of her own. And I feel like I've seen this with some people where you deal with them, and I know that they're going to reach a spiritual height that I'm not even going to dream of, but it's because they need it to heal their own trauma, and their trauma is just so deep. It's just so deep.
I think you'd be surprised with how many people might actually connect to and relate to her perspective. And I think that that's so beautiful, actually, in the way that you said it right now. You made me want to do a psychological inventory on Rabia and Advia. But I feel like the fact that a person can pick this up and say, wow, this speaks to me, kind of, just like a person can pick up Ghazali's work and say, wow, this speaks to me. Again, it opens that channel for people to be able to live out their way of connecting to Allah and their way of creating their sense of ikhlas.
Exactly.
But yeah, I definitely think that her category is vast. I think that if I mean, there are so many people that can connect, trying to fill that void, because trauma is just present in so many homes and so many lives in so many different ways.
Yeah, one of my teachers used to say that the scholars and historical giants are like medicines in the cabinet. Like al-adwiya, and everyone has a different, like, or even vitamins. I like the word vitamins, like supplements, different supplements that at different times of our lives, like, we can relate to the morbidness in some of Ghazali's writing, the love through sadness that you feel in the poetry of Sayyida Rabia al-Adawiyya. Yeah. And interesting that the Egyptian revolution happened, the massacre in the square named after her. I just thought that was profound as well. But let's take a break. Inshallah, we'll pick up next week. I think our regular time is good, that I was supposed to meet you guys, I think, on Sunday, if that's fine with everybody. I'll just make sure that I remind myself to be there. But what we want to think about then is the different tiers of ikhlas. And maybe you can also think about the different tiers of love and sadness, if you have time. Like, how would you place باختلاف أحوالهم, right? Not just they're ashkhas. When he says the word ashkhas, shakhs is ingredients. There are a number of things there, right? What are the ingredients of a shakhs? And then what are the different tabaqat of people in regards to these areas in your life that you serve and you deal with? Barakallahu feekun wa jazaakun Allahu khayran ahsan al-jaza. I'll put this on YouTube, so if you guys want to watch it later.
If you can just quote the correct method.
Go ahead and say it.
So he's saying that this is narrated by Tirmidhi عليه رحمة الله, that says عن حذيفة رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تكونوا إمعة تقولون إن أحسن الناس أحسنا وإن ظلموا ظلمنا ولكن وطنوا أنفسكم إن أحسن الناس أن تحسنوا وإن أساءوا فلا تظلموا
فلا تظلموا.
الشيخ الألباني ضعف إسناده والله أعلم.
What do you say?
He's saying that Imam al-Albani ضعف إسناده, but it is narrated in Tirmidhi والله أعلم.
فلا تظلموا. نعم. لكن المعنى إن شاء الله يكون صحيح إن شاء الله.
Can I trouble you to put the links that were in the chat of this Zoom to the WhatsApp group. For some reason, I wasn't able to copy them.
Yeah,
out.
or I can put them in the YouTube post at the bottom.
Perfect. Jazakallah khair.
You guys don't mind if your pictures are on the thing on YouTube?
No, no problem. Thank you so much.
Okay, just making sure. All right. Barakallahu feekun wa jazakunna Allahu khairan ahsan al-jaza. We'll see you guys inshallah, I think on Sunday. Ramadan, belated, inshallah, early Ramadan Mubarak, inshallah. Not belated, but a pre-Ramadan Mubarak to all of you, inshallah.
Ramadan Kareem.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum
Waalaikumsalam.
salam.
Allahumma salli.